If you've ever heard Britney Spears' song that shares the name of today's episode, you know that it's about a mistake. Maybe many mistakes made regarding love. She's letting some guy know that honestly, she isn't that serious about love with him. And perhaps more importantly, I think it's a little bit of her beating herself up for, again, making the mistake of playing with someone's heart. Whether related to love or something else, how many of you out there have ever done something wrong or made a pretty obvious mistake? Okay, you can all put your hands down now. It's a simple fact of life that we all make mistakes. Being an imperfect human being, it's a natural part of life. We all make little mistakes, big mistakes, and mistakes somewhere in the middle. Nobody is exempt. Even people who society labels as experts or professionals, they still make mistakes too. If you know golf, you know the name Arnold Palmer. He once told of how he was in a golf tournament and had an easy putt to finish the hole. Instead of walking up to the hole, he took a moment to shake the hand of one of his old friends he saw. He then walked up on the green and hurriedly putt, but missed. He made a mistake. But guess what? His golfing career didn't end. People certainly respond differently to making mistakes. There are some people who realize, understand, and process the fact that mistakes are a part of life, and that all we do after making them is figure out ways to avoid making them in the future. Others are so very hard on themselves. I know people who say, I'm dumb, I'm an idiot, I'm no good, I'm stupid, just because of even the smallest of errors. So, why do we literally beat ourselves up sometimes because of mistakes? I know people who hold on to mistakes so long, they feel like they forever will have a mark on them because of something they did or a mistake they made even years and years before. And that causes them to live in regret. And I found there are a few phrases we all seem to have so much trouble saying. Things like, I made a mistake, or I admit it, or I'm sorry. It takes a lot of grace and certainly some courage to say those things, and even to ourselves, but it really holds a tremendous weight. Even though it's hard, admitting we are imperfect really does lift quite a weight off of our shoulders, and it gives us perspective to see how we can learn from our own mistakes and the mistakes of others. John Maxwell said this: a man must be big enough to admit his mistakes, smart enough to profit from them, and strong enough to correct them. Albert Einstein said, a person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. So when we make a mistake, how many of us like to draw attention to it? Probably not that many of us, but more importantly than that, how many of us can actually admit that we made a mistake? Honestly, how many of us can say and own up to the words, I made a mistake? In Proverbs 28:13, it says this. This is the English Standard Version. Whoever conceals his transgressions will not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them will obtain mercy. In other words, when you try to hide your mistakes, it won't do anything for you. But if you're willing to admit and seek redemption for them, grace and growth will be afforded to you. It's hard for people to admit when they're wrong. God says that if we admit our mistakes, regardless of their size, if we admit our failures, if we admit our sin, then we get another chance. How many times do people just blame all their personal mistakes on others, or make excuses for their problems, or they just shut down and give up? We can't give up, especially not when a fresh start is available on the other side of the mistake. Today I want to share a little of my perspective on why admitting our mistakes is important, but perhaps more importantly, why focusing on them isn't. Before I get into why admitting our mistakes is important, let me caution you. Admitting when we do wrong things can have very negative side effects too. It can affect others' opinions about you, it can reduce self-confidence, or it can change your status or placement in a group. However, knowing we are human and make mistakes, even though we try not to, has benefits that far outweigh the negatives. And it really is dependent on which aspect you choose to focus on. I'm also not talking here about people who are purposely careless or even just don't try to do things correctly ever, therefore causing mistakes to happen constantly. I'm sure you all know someone like that, living recklessly, disregarding the feelings of others. I'm talking today about someone to whom mistakes will happen, but they own up to them and try to make amends for them and genuinely makes an effort for them not to happen again. So why should we allow ourselves to be okay with making mistakes? Here's my take. When you own up to a mistake, no matter how big or how small, you can learn something from it, You show maturity and growth, and then you can put it behind you. Let's talk first about what we can learn. I had a discussion with someone just the other day about difficulties people were going through in public education right now. How we've had to try so many new things, some of which have proven successful and some which have been utter failures. So, do we lean on the successes or dwell on the failures? Perhaps more importantly, we focus on what we've learned through the failure. There's always a lesson to be learned and always a positive, no matter the negative. President Franklin Roosevelt said, "It is common sense to take a method and try it. If it fails, admit it frankly and try another. But above all, try something." What our focus should be is not on the size of the mistake or even what caused it, but rather what we can learn from it. If you want to learn something about failures and success, ask any small business owner. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, 25% of businesses fail in the first year, and that number increases to half within the first 5 years. So, how do business leaders handle such a statistical lack of success? The most common reasons businesses fail include poor structure or management, inadequate planning, poor marketing, or a lack of capital or funding. But sometimes it's because the owners have never done it before. It doesn't work right the first time, they learn, and then they try again. And yes, those failures can be expensive and sometimes hurtful. But the key to overcoming the mistakes is what they learn in the process and how they'll move forward. Success is often built on what you learn through failure. When Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, the first few hundred tries didn't work out. Well, what if he had quit after try number 10? He reviewed, he learned, he pivoted, and he moved forward. Never call a mistake a failure. Instead, call it education. You learn from past failures and mistakes and act in faith for the future. And then there's that idea of showing maturity and growth. Being upfront and honest with yourself and others about mistakes shows you are mature and professional, and it gives others a sense that you can be trusted, even though you made a mistake. And perhaps more importantly, taking responsibility for your actions is way better than beating yourself up over it. If you make a mistake and it's something you can fix, great. If you can't, you can still recover from and overcome it. When you admit to yourself that a mistake was made, you can create a plan to figure out how to correct it or how to overcome it. Someone else may also have made a similar error in the past and be able to guide you through your process to a solution or a direction forward. I was talking with a group of teachers a few months back about some of the issues they faced overcoming teaching music in a pandemic. And while I shared about some of the, to be very honest, trial and error that I had gone through, I heard very similar stories from almost everyone who spoke. And everyone had ideas and strategies on how to overcome and help and support each other. We had all tried stuff. Some of it worked, some of it didn't. But we were able to encourage each other. And if it should be an issue that your mistake has or could potentially cause a conflict between you and someone else, you should never blame something that you caused on someone else, and you should avoid conflict when possible. Chances are that if someone else knows about your error, you might have to face consequences of it anyways, therefore compounding the issue. I know this is big in scale, but let's say you make a big mistake in something at work. Then, rather than owning up to it, you cover it up. Other people find out, then it affects others, then word gets back to your boss. Would it be better to own up to the issue in the beginning? Even if it involves a consequence, it's always better to be honest. The right choice is to admit the mistake and learn from it the ways that you can change your process or your behavior. And lastly, why is it important to put mistakes behind you? We have mistakes probably every day. We need to learn that though mistakes aren't what we strive to do, we need to hold the power over them. And in turn, that means we have the ability to let them hold power over us if we're not careful. It's our responsibility to act in faith that everything will be okay. If you act in faith, then you'll do something positive. You'll have a positive mindset. Put some action into effect to ensure that you don't repeat the same mistakes over and over. We have to stop rehearsing and regretting the past, because the more time we spend regretting our past, the more of our future that we waste. We need to focus our thoughts on moving forward, because the way we think directs the way we feel, and that determines what we say and how we act. If you want to change your actions moving forward, change the way you think about the situation. Reset those old patterns because repeating those old patterns won't get you anywhere other than downward. Think of it this way: you go up to a wall and bang your head against it over and over again. You keep doing it thinking, maybe it'll fall down this time. The wall doesn't fall, now your head hurts. Most importantly, we must remember that if we try to overcome our mistakes on our own, if we try to be better and do better, we can really only see victory, really see only our greatest success when we lean on God. So when you make a mistake, don't just say, oops, I did it again. Own up to the error, look for what you can learn, how you will grow, how He can guide and help you, and then move forward. Don't shy away from the fact that we're imperfect. If you make a mistake, learn and grow from it, but don't let it overwhelm you and bring you down. Find the little wins every day because there are always accomplishments to be proud of. Sometimes it's really hard to be the person who focuses on the glass half full rather than the glass half empty, but the effect it can have on you is huge. I'm in my 24th year of teaching and I'm still learning every day. Still making mistakes, trying new things, and finding new ways to implement things in my classroom. My children are 19 and 16, and do I get every parenting skill right every time? No way. What I did with one kid won't necessarily work with the other, and a strategy I even use one day may not work the next. I still have so much more to learn. But when we try to learn from our mistakes, overcome our insufficiency, grow and move forward, we will be better people. I think it was Vince Lombardi that might have said it best when he said, perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence. So I encourage you today, be excellent. As always, I really do appreciate you taking time to listen. We'll see you back here next time, and we'll have more for you on Cue.